Lando Norris vs Max Verstappen. That's been the constant battle in Formula 1 in 2024. On one side, there's Verstappen, who's been the champion for the last 2-3 years, winning from 2021 till 2023. On the other side, you've got Lando Norris, who's been waiting patiently for his chance to win races, and this year he's finally got that shot. Unfortunately though, a common occurrence this year has been McLaren and Lando in particular bottling races and missing out on wins. That's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to go through those races where Lando could have easily scored more points than he did and see what the championship would look like if he maximised those chances he had. Believe it or not, the first real mistake Lando made was all the way back in round 5 at Shanghai. He achieved pole in the sprint quali, which was wet weather all the way through, and it was a crazy 1.3 second deficit to second place. Unfortunately for him though, of course, the sprint is where everything goes wrong, and this is his first real mistake of 2024. Lando lost the lead into turn 1 to Lewis Hamilton, going off the track and taking him down to 7th place within the span of just a few turns. That mistake cost Lando, as he finished 6th in the sprint, and in these championships every single point counts, so you can't be throwing these away. If you've been watching Formula 1 this year, you'll know that Lando and losing the lead in turn 1 has been a love story in 2024. So in this scenario, we're going to take it as if Lando did not lose the position into turn 1 and instead maintain the lead for a few laps before eventually being overtaken by Max in the dominant Red Bull. This is exactly how Lewis's sprint race went, so that's how we're going to base it off. In the race, Lando did indeed maximise his chances as he achieved P2 ahead of Perez. This was one of Lando's best races yet, as he overperformed given that the McLaren was nowhere near the Red Bull yet. And so after China, with Max getting his 4th win, the gap between Max and Lando has now gone up to 48 points. So now we've got through Miami where Lando won his first race in F1, which is kind of a small mental burden he had in his way. But now more importantly, the cars are a lot closer in terms of pure race pace. These next few races get quite interesting because you could say Max or Lando should have been ahead in different races. In Imola, Max scraped through with a win, finishing only 0.7 of a second ahead of Lando. At the start of this race, Verstappen pulls a big gap ahead of Lando, but at the end of this race, Norris is the one hunting him down, only narrowly missing out on the win. Now, given the pace of the McLaren during the race being a lot stronger than the Red Bull over that weekend, we're going to give Norris the win as the maximum result possible. So with this, it means it's 2 wins in a row for Lando, which has cut down that deficit to a 34-point gap. This just kind of shows how powerful the difference between a win and a second place is. So Monaco happens as normal because the result wouldn't be different, but we go to Canada where we had one of the best races of the season. Many crashes, safety cars, yellow flags, and a 3-way fight for the win provided quite an entertaining race. Unfortunately though, McLaren continuously pitted Lando at the wrong time, combined with a few driver errors, and that was another race win lost. So this one is again going to have to be a Norris win as the maximum result. So that changes the championship to a 23-point gap between Max and Lando after Lando finished ahead of Max in both Monaco and Canada. Gets spicy in Spain as this time Lando was on pole again, and indeed he lost it again into turn 1, finishing lap 1 in 3rd after starting 1st. Max goes on to win for the 5th time this season and again extends his championship lead. In this race, we're going to keep the result the same because I feel I gave Lando the benefit of the doubt in Imola, and Max drove exceptionally well to win in Barcelona, so we'll call it even. Alright, get your popcorn for this one. We're in Austria for another sprint weekend. This next period of the season is where you'll really see Max's win drought become a problem for him. The sprint was not great for Lando as he finished 3rd and ideally should have been at least 2nd, but the race was entertaining as Lando was chasing Max with 20 laps to go. Having made many bold attempts at trying to overtake Max, Lando tried once more, but this time it resulted in a crash between the 2 drivers as Verstappen had a puncture and Norris completely retired from the race with damage to his car. Due to Lando's inexperience, impatience, and lack of utilization of the car, he ended up losing more points to Max despite his car clearly being quicker. This has to go down as another missed Lando win, and it should have been his 4th win of the season, but this one, changing the result to a Lando win, would put the gap back to 23 points. Britain and Hungary were the next 2 races, and 2 more chances for Lando to win that he's missed. In Britain, Lando pitted for soft tyres on his final stint to the end of the race, despite medium tyres still being available. He also made the mistake of stopping poorly in the pit box, missing part of it, which caused him to lose 2 seconds of race time. This cost him not only the win, but also the second place that he could not manage to defend against Max with those old tyres, and Hamilton ended up winning that race. In Hungary, Norris's teammate Oscar Piastri led majority of the race, but again McLaren made another error, this time pitting Lando before Oscar, resulting in an undercut. This caused a problem as McLaren had to ask Lando several times to switch positions, and only after a few laps did Norris return the position, which did not give him enough time to try and re-overtake Oscar and win the race. Instead of arguing with his engineer for those few laps, Lando should have taken control and said, "I'll give the position back," and then tried to re-overtake, which it seems he easily could have done because he seemed a lot quicker on the tyres he had. So another Norris win, and that would make it his 6th of the season, meaning he should have won 6 of the last 8 races. Finally it's happened, Lando now would lead the championship ahead of Max by 2 points, due to the fact that Max finished back in P5. This would also be the first time since 2022 someone else has led the Drivers' Championship. And not only this, but now McLaren leads Red Bull by 16 points in the Constructors' Championship as well. So a very positive weekend for McLaren with a 1-2 leading both championships, and this is where they should have been in control. So that pretty much sums up Lando's mistakes. So what does the championship look like after Lando has actually maximized his chances? Well, he leads the Drivers' Championship ahead of Max by 22 points, while McLaren leads the Constructors with 643 points, 99 ahead of Ferrari, and a whopping 122 points ahead of Red Bull. Now let's compare to what actually happened. With 3 races to go after Brazil, Lando is 62 points behind Max, while McLaren does currently lead the championship in the Constructors. 36 points ahead of Ferrari is not the kind of margin that they could have had by now. Lando would have 8 race wins, while Max would have 6, but in actuality, Lando only has 3, while Max is the one who has 8 wins. So what went wrong for McLaren and Lando that led them to missing so many great opportunities? Well, right now it kind of looks like the championship is over for Lando because 62 points is just too big of a gap. Lando and McLaren's inexperience has been pretty much a burden for them this whole time, while Max and Red Bull have that experience and they know how to maximize a car. Some say Lando's the worst championship contender ever, but I would say that's quite harsh. I would just say he's simply not ready and he doesn't understand how to race Max. Lando is not aggressive enough and he leaves way too much space, while Max does the complete opposite. Mistakes have also been a big problem for Lando, losing the lead into turn 1 every time he starts on pole. The British race where he had a pit stop and he chose the wrong tyres and braked too late. And in Austria he had a big crash with Max. That was purely due to the lack of patience and being calm in scenarios like that. McLaren have also been pretty poor with their decision making, such as in Hungary where Piastri was leading the race and Norris is behind. He gets to undercut him and ends up overtaking him, and McLaren ended up having to argue with Lando over the radio saying please give the position back, and it took him a few laps to actually do that. And there's in Monza where they came up with this whole papaya rules thing. They should have just been very clear cut with their whole decision making process and who should be ahead and if you should be racing or not. And making mistakes is part of the sport, but you have to learn from them. And ultimately I think the main takeaway from this is that 2024 has not been a championship contending year for Lando, more so a learning experience for Lando. He still needs to develop himself as a driver, while you've got Verstappen on the other side. He's clearly already got everything he needs to be winning, and he's been carrying a car that's not as good as it looks. And that's why I think by the time we get to Abu Dhabi, it's going to be Verstappen, the 2024 champion. So that sums up our video for today. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.